Gun violence gets the most press from mass shootings, but it's also a pressing concern in everyday life on the city streets. Here to discuss is Father Agustino Torres with the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, which is based in the Bronx and dedicated to working within poor inner-city communities. Father Agustino, it's so great to have you here. You're no stranger to gun violence. You've seen people shoot others in front of you. What do you think contributes to the growing anger fueling recent shootings?
Speaking as a priest, I think it's demonic. I think that we need to be purged of some of these things. But at social level, there's a desperation. There's a great need for Christ to return into the hearts of our people, and for that peace to be manifest throughout the world. And this has a lot of different manifestations, and gun violence is one of them.
Discussions around counseling for the victims' families, they're always at the forefront. But what about the general mental health discussion? What is the church saying about that?
The church is speaking up on the mental health issues, but the question is like, how is this being concretely lived out? It's difficult. The need is incredible. You could say that we're still sick from the pandemic, but now it's a mental and a heart sickness, and we need to rehumanize the world in the light of Jesus Christ. And this is hard work.
It is hard work, but you're doing it. Father Agustino, what can you tell us? Is there an anecdote that you have of what it's like to do this work and to help people who are struggling both mentally and spiritually?
Yeah, it's about being there, being present, and taking a risk. A while ago, I was just there in the Bronx, and a knock came to the door at 11 p.m. And a man said, he said, I am going to buy a gun and shoot my family, and there's nothing that you can do that will change my mind. And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? I began to pray internally, and I spoke to him, and it was like a chess match for the sake of his life. I spoke him down from that, found him a way to get into our shelter, and really helped him rehabilitate his life. And this is a little bit of what we do. We're there in those moments of incredible crisis and talking people out of horrible things, really casting out the evil by being present and bringing Christ to the world. Yesterday, we just had a procession through the streets of our neighborhood. These are the things that we are doing in the place where violence is happening.
Witnessing right where it's happening. In your ministry, you're working with gangs in New York and around the country. Are assault weapons the problem, or is gun violence different there? I'm thinking about the USCCB proposal. Is that actually helpful for you as you minister to those on the streets?
That's a great question. I'm not an expert. I do know and work with the police a good bit, but mostly what I see, unfortunately, is handguns. Me working with the young people, there's a lot of handguns. There's death, there's violence, there are shootings. But I personally do not see those assault weapons on our streets, although I do know they exist.
And where do those handguns come from? Is it something where people who have mental health issues have access to rampant guns, or is this gang related, where they're not necessarily within the law to begin with?
My experience is that they're not within the law to begin with. There's a lot of ghost guns on the street. It's a very sad reality, but that's my experience.
But your work is also obviously Catholic, ministering to those many are scared to approach. This is not an easy thing what you're doing, and many of us would rather look the other way than be there for someone who is mentally hurting. And you've had those scary situations all the time. Can you just explain to us the Catholic perspective on guns and guns control? Is there actually church teaching on this?
Explicit church teaching, like this is what you should do with possession of guns. No, I mean, we have the moral principles that undergird all of our teaching. It is within the purview of a person for self-defense. And so there is a clear argument for possessing a gun for that self-defense, because sometimes the lethal force shown, it has to be proportional in our moral teaching. So there is and guns in and of themselves are not morally evil vis-a-vis something like abortion, which is just very clear in our moral teaching. But the question arises then, what about some of these weapons that were designed for mass carnage? And this is some of the things that are being said currently by our bishops. And the words of common sense laws. Church teaching would support this very clearly And I do too. You know, for somebody who can't buy a beer but can buy an assault weapon, the questions arise in my mind. It's like, what's behind that? And we need to look at that. I think Archbishop mentioned in another time that guns have become an idol. I'm from South Texas. I see this. We need to be more Catholic in this area as well.
And in understanding that compassion, really quick, what kind of measures are needed to bring that inner peace and that peace to vulnerable communities? How can we advocate for people who are at risk and vulnerable to gangs and violence?
Prayer is powerful. The battle is spiritual before anything else. We invite you to come and participate with our work, support our work, but to be there to know that Christ is the answer and to live that way is what is needed.
Well, we hope that everyone hears your message, and we'll be praying for you, Padre. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Montse.